Hey guys, and welcome back to Star Control 2. Last time out we were told to head to the moon to sort out the supposed hierarchy base there, so we're going to have a look around. And there's a few things here. There are some minerals, but it's mostly crap, so I'm not going to bother. And for the first time we have biological scans. And one feature that the Planet Lander has that I haven't shown you yet is this. It's a stunner. Now, usually you'll get biological samples from doing that, but because we're shooting at robots, nothing happened. And just a word of warning for you guys, never ever ever shoot a mineral patch, because if you do, the mineral patch will disappear and you'll lose all the RUs from it, which if you're dealing with high area RUs can be pretty annoying. As you can see from the report we've got at the surface here, this base has pretty much been abandoned. So we're going to nick everything we can and head back to the White Star. Looks like they're guessing it's an SOS system, but there's no one around to hear it at the moment, so we'll just rob everything we can and head it back to the ship. Unfortunately, you don't actually get anything from scavenging materials, but we'll keep everything we can in just in case something happens. So, let's head back to the starbase and give them the good news.
Have you dealt with the base yet?
I'm so tempted to lie here and say it was a glorious battle, but let's be truthful.
I'll be darned. All these years we've been listening to their incoherent broadcast, and we never even guessed. Captain, listen closely. Long-range sensors show a ship closing on this station fast. Our computer identifies it as Ur-Quan, Avenger class. I think you've got a fight on your hands, Captain. Your best bet is to wait until you have point-blank range. Captain, it's jamming our signal.
By the fetid breath of the Dark Twin Kazon, a human and an alien starship. How fascinating. When I intercepted that Ur-Quan drone and learned that an unidentified starship had approached Earth, I never expected to find such a remarkable vehicle in the hands of a human. Humans are prey animals, weak and helpless. But here is a human in an armed starship, and therefore in direct violation of the oath of fealty. I am sure our masters, the Ur-Quan, will punish Earth most severely for this treachery when I present them with the twisted wreckage of your ship and your many charred corpses.
Okay, so who's got arachnophobia? Welcome to the Ilrath, one of the most hostile races in the game, and they're going to be our first fight. And they're a pretty deep race, actually. Not as much is used of them in this game as really should be, but they're certainly, shall we say, interesting, and I'll be trying to get as much conversation with them as possible in the future, but for now we will just put up with what they have to say.
Since you will soon be dead, I will gladly explain. We have spent many years gleefully preying on the Pakunk. They are a pitiful, easily killed species. And we would have continued in this divine worship of Dogar and Kazon, but we required additional crew members and repairs to our cloaking device. So we departed the Jiglass constellation and set course for home. But before we had reached our region of space, we detected the passage of a nearby vessel, the Ur-Quan drone. It informed us about you, so here we are. And now, you die!
And welcome to the tactical screen. This is where we're going to combat with other space vessels. We get the choice of ships to go with. We have an Earthling cruiser and we have our precursor ship. Our precursor ship at the moment is pretty weak, so I'm going to leave that out of the fighting. The Earthling cruiser should be more than enough to handle what we've got here. We're up against an Ur-Wrath Avenger that you can see in the bottom left. However, this is a special Ur-Wrath Avenger in that if you look at the top right, you can see that its crew is down to about a third of normal, and it doesn't have any of its secondary weapons, which is essentially a cloaking device. Every ship in the game comes with a certain amount of crew, a certain amount of weapon energy, and a primary and secondary weapon. The Ur-Wrath ship has a flamethrower essentially as its primary weapon, so it's very short range, and its secondary weapons its cloaking device. The Earthling cruiser has a nuclear warhead that homes as its primary weapon, and it has a point defense laser as its secondary weapon. So it sounds like the Earthling cruiser's pretty darned awesome, and it's not too bad overall, to be fair. But the one weakness of the Earthling cruiser is that it's incredibly slow. So it's not very good against the more manoeuvrable enemies. Space combat in this game is fairly interesting, and the way that space is handled overall is pretty interesting in Star Control 2. Unlike a game like, say, Free Space, which you've seen me play earlier, the fact is you don't have to keep your energy output up in order to keep moving. So what I'm basically saying, or what you can do in this game, is that you can get yourself up to a certain speed in a certain direction, and you can change the angle that your ship's at without changing which way you're headed, because you're in space. There's no friction to slow you down or push against. So you actually have to push your engines to change direction that you're going in. The only way that you can really break any sort of rules or use gravity in any form is, as you can see in the middle of the screen here, that is supposed to represent Earth. And you can use planets as gravity wells, and you can perform gravity slingshots that make you accelerate extremely quickly, so you can use slow ships to catch up to fast ships. Now, our Starbase commander kind of deceived us here. He said we should wait until we're in point blank range. Against the Ur-Wrath, that's suicide. What we should be doing is trying to maintain as large a distance as possible and just basically trying to ping it with homing missiles. So that's going to be the idea that I do here. I think as default the Earthling cruiser has 18 crew, and each weapon does a certain amount of damage to the ship in terms of killing the crew, and obviously once you're at 0 crew the ship's destroyed. But for the moment we can get into the battle now. As you can see, the Ur-Wrath using the gravity whip maneuver, but smile, you son of a... And that's the end of that one, because as you can see the Earthship is still moving backwards at the end of the fight.
What a beautiful sight, Captain! I haven't seen an Avenger blown away like that since the battle in Draco. I guess you've shown that you can handle yourself in battle, Captain. So my last reservation about helping you has been dissolved. I will commit this station to helping free Earth and defeat the Ur-Quan. We may get our atoms rearranged in the process, but by God, Captain, we're going to try. So the obvious first step is to get the precursor equipment and software over here so that we can make it work with our ship repair fabricators. But then what, Captain?
I think time for some belligerence. We haven't had enough of that yet.
Yes, Captain. We'll do just that. By the way, Captain, I think we need a name for this new alliance we're going to forge. And since it was your idea, it's only fair that you get the honor of naming it. So, what will it be?
Well, let's see here. This one looks good. Oh, come on, like you wouldn't. Fine.
Okay, that sounds pretty inspiring. So be it. The new alliance of free stars. Now, Captain, I expect the configuration process for the starbase to take at least 2 weeks, so let's get to work. I have good news to report, Captain. We have successfully integrated the precursor technology from your ship into our fabricator system, and as you can see, we've already begun minor repairs on your ship, patching up some of the micrometeorite holes. We noticed that your ship does not have an emergency warp escape unit, so our engineers rigged up some for you and each of your escorts. Now, you should be able to escape from a bad situation with the touch of a button. But there is a cost, however. The unit gulps up 5 fuel units each time your precursor ship uses it. Also, we now have a limited capacity to make modifications to your ship, to refine starship fuel, to build additional combat ships, and to train new members of your crew for the flagship and any ships you acquire for your fleet. Captain, I know you're eager to get to work, so I'll be brief. If you have any questions how this starbase works, what resources we need, or just some background information on the galaxy, don't hesitate to ask.
First off, time to unload some minerals and get some cash going.
The more minerals you bring us, Captain, the faster we'll be able to tackle the Ur-Quan. Try to avoid getting gruesomely killed, Captain.
Gee, thanks. I'll try and do just that. There is a huge tutorial section there, but I decided to cut it out because I can explain everything pretty much on the fly, and it's not particularly interesting to listen to. There will be a bit of a history lesson, though, in the final tutorial episode. As you can see, I've just filled up with fuel, and I'm looking at my modules. Modules are basically just the improvements that we can make to the flagship. I'm getting rid of the weapon that's currently on the flagship because it's multiple thousand RUs and I can use the storage space a lot better. Early in the game I am mainly going to be using my fleet ships as defenders rather than using the White Star itself. I will be using it as a weapon later in the game, but by then I will have got a lot more RUs. The money's pretty tight at the moment. So I'm getting some jets because I want my ship to be as fast as possible at the moment. I don't really like having a sloth for a ship, and I'm just increasing my crew because obviously I lost some on Mercury thanks to the earthquakes and fire on there, and I'm going to buy a second Earthling cruiser and crew it up because I may need that in the future. So with that done, we're going to head out to the edges of the solar system, and essentially I'm going to mine the solar system now, but I'm going to do that off screen, and I will see you next time for our first encounter. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.